Hey, what's going on, guys? From Gaming here, back in another video. Today's episode, we are taking a look at the Balazan Spiritborn in-game build guide, and there's a lot of different variations that you can use with this. This specific guide is going to go over the Rake version of this, but there is also a Crush version of this. There is a Quill version as well as a Thrash version of this, and these are currently the 4 best builds in Diablo 4, at least for Spiritborn, and this overall is an S tier build for all 4 of these variants. Okay, jumping into the seasonal powers here. So with this season, we have our Catalyst, we have Infusions, Hoardric Jewels, and Arcana. So basically your Infusion and your Arcana are both going to be buffing your Catalyst here. And you can unlock all of these just by doing the seasonal quest line. Then down here at the bottom, we have Hoardric Jewels. So Hoardric Jewels will become unlocked at level 10 on the seasonal campaign. Or excuse me, chapter 10 of the seasonal campaign. And that will allow you to craft these jewels, which can be actually socketed into your gear. And in a lot of situations, these are actually going to be stronger than gems. So you can see here, this specific jewel gives a whole bunch of armor and resist all. And then also a ton of like primary stats. So these are super OP this season. So you want to make sure that you're getting the best jewels for your specific build. Kind of going back to our catalyst here. So we're running an Astral Pillar. It's actually going to work very well and synergize well with our Vortex, and this is going to allow us to group mobs very easily and also apply vulnerable to them as well. Now, these builds are specifically going to work off poison damage, which we'll talk about in a bit, but that's why we're running Corrosive Vapor here, is our Catalyst will now deal that poison damage. It is also going to synergize with our Noxus Resonance, which is one of our key passives. We'll talk about that here in just a minute as well, but really poison damage is kind of the theme of this specific build. For Arcana here, we're running Bottled Wind, Fractured Core, and Reactive Ooze. Reactive Ooze is going to help us with our maximum resource generation. Fractured Core actually doesn't look super strong, but a lot of builds are running it right now because this is going to remove that damage resistance aura from elites. It is really going to help in a lot of those pits, especially when you're kind of pushing to the top end of your build because these mobs take a really long time to kill. And then Bottled Wind over here, our Catalyst will grant a berry equal to percentage of our maximum life. And this will actually work very well with one of our legendary nodes on our Paragon board. And that specific node is going to give us increased damage based on our maximum life through barrier. So we can look at that here in just a little bit as well. So moving on to our skills, we have Rake, Ravager, Armored Hide, the Hunter as our ultimate, Toxic Skin, and Vortex. So the main ability that we're going to use in this specific build is going to be Rake. And Rake by itself will not do a whole bunch of damage, but this will trigger a lot of effects. You know, things that do trigger from core or things that do trigger from Jaguar effects. This ability is going to kind of blanket cover all the specific effects. So that's why we run it, is to trigger other effects. We're also running Ravager here. So Ravager is really nice because it's going to allow us to stack our Jaguar Spirit very quickly. I'm not sure what the Jaguar Spirit is. That's going to add the Jaguar tag essentially to all of our spells. So all of our spells will now become Jaguar spells. Excuse me. Did not mean to go back a tab there. But yeah, all of our spells will be Jaguar spells. And then every 15th attack with a Jaguar spell, we're going to do a burst of damage. So Ravager just helps that 15th proc happen faster. Armored Hide is what we're going to use as our defensive. And this is going to grant us resolve stacks, and resolve stacks are basically what's going to keep us alive. Each stack is going to grant 20% damage reduction, stacks up to 8 times. If you get low on stacks, you will become very squishy, so you want to keep your resolve stacks up as much as you can. And this will also grant us the unstoppable effect as well. So really OP defensive here. We're also running Vortex, which we talked about earlier in the last slide. This is going to pair very well with our Catalyst. This is also going to make all of our mobs vulnerable if you are running the Catalyst that we talked about earlier. We're also running Toxic Skin because, again, this is a poison-based build. And the reason we're running this, we'll talk about this here in just a minute, is we're running a skill called Replenishing Toxic Skin, which is going to increase our Thorns damage. Now, the reason that Thorns is very, very important in this build is because, like we talked about earlier, we are running the Noxus Resonance key passive. So more Thorns damage means more poison damage. So that will be something that we're stacking very heavily in this build, is Thorns damage. And then finally, we're running the Hunter as well as our ultimate. We do get a lot of damage buffs just for pressing an ultimate, essentially. We'll kind of see that here in a minute when we look at our specific talent tree. But very important from a mobility standpoint and both a damage standpoint to be running an ultimate in this build. Hey, what's going on, guys? Sorry for cutting up the video here. If you do want a written guide of whichever specific build video that you're watching right now, check out the description below. It's going to link out to another video that will cover this entire Diablo 4 cheat sheet that I have spent several days and weekends creating. But the whole idea of this cheat sheet is to take whichever build that you're watching, and then you can come through here and follow this specific guide, and it will get you to Torment 4. We also have a whole bunch of other tips for beginners, like leveling tips, gearing tips, material tips, what all these things are, and how all of this factors into the specific build that you're looking at. Again, if you want to check it out, we're going to leave a link in the description of this video. Go ahead and click it, and it will take you out to a free preview of this file. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about talent. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of our specific skills here. So we are running Rock Splitter with Enhanced Rock Splitter. We're not really using this for anything. We're just using these 2 points to get to some of these next nodes. So we have Rake. We'll be taking Enhanced Rake as well as Advantageous Rake. This is going to give us a little bit CDR in some of our abilities. We're putting 1 point into Vigorous. It's going to give us a little bit of resource generation. Moving down here, we're putting a point into Vortex, Enhanced Vortex, and then Measured Vortex. So since we are utilizing Barrier in this build, this is going to give us a little bit more burst damage. This will also scale very well with the rune that we talked about earlier. Excuse me, the legendary node that we talked about earlier, Viscous Shield. More barrier, more damage. This will also be applying Vulnerable for us as well. So we'll be running Apex here for increased vulnerable damage. We're putting 3 points into Unrestrained Power, getting that unhindered effect from our Toxic Skin, and then getting that unstoppable effect from our Armored Hide. One thing that's very important to take here under Toxic Skin is going to be replenishing Toxic Skin. So Toxic Skin passively increases Thorns damage you deal to poison enemies. Very, very important that we take this, and very, very important that you do have Toxic Skin on your bars so that you do benefit from this effect. This is the main reason really for running Toxic Skin, is this node right here. Going back into Armored Hide here, we're taking Enhanced Armored Hide, and we're also taking Reinforced Armored Hide. This is going to give us a little bit more damage reduction. Going down the list here, 3 points into Auspicious, and then 3 points into Bastion. Bastion is very important because this is going to give us 1,200 Thorns, and then we're going to double dip again into that Viscous Shield legendary rune while we have a barrier active. Your Thorns is increased by 20%, and then Auspicious here is going to help us kind of build up a barrier and maintain it. Putting 3 points into Nourishment, so your healing is increased by 20% when you heal. Your poison damage is increased by 12% for 3 seconds as well. We're putting 3 points here into Resilient. Casting a Gorilla skill is going to grant us increased maximum life, so that Gorilla skill is going to be our Armored Hide. And then 3 points into Potent. Hitting enemies with Jaguar skills increases the damage that they take up from you up to 90%. Again, we are running the Jaguar passive, so that means every single skill that we have is a Jaguar skill. Moving down here to our ultimate, we're putting 5 points into the Hunter, and we're going all the way down to Exalted Hunter. So this has a chance to reset its cooldown, kind of get a chain reset of the Hunter. And the main reason that we're running the Hunter is because of these nodes here. All these nodes here are actually going to buff your ultimate to make it stronger. Supremacy being one of the main ones here. Anytime you kill an enemy with your ultimate up, you're going to get this stacking effect of Supremacy, again, getting you up to 30% increased damage. Your ultimate will also give you Unstoppable for 6 seconds, and then 3 points into Intricacy here. We can now cast our last Potency, Defensive, or Focus skill for free up to 3 times in the next 7 seconds. So those are going to be our Toxic Skin is a focus, our Vortex is a focus, our Ravager is a focus, and then our Rake. Excuse me, our Rake is not a focus. There's another one here. Armored Hide, yeah. That's a defensive, right? So these 4 spells we'll be able to cast again for free after we cast our ultimate, the Hunter. Then down here at the very bottom, we are taking Noxus Resonance, which we talked about a few times already in this guide. And since our Thorns damage is poison damage, stacking all of that Thorns damage is all going to funnel into Noxus Resonance here, giving our poison damage not only a nice rot effect, but really it's giving you a ton of burst upfront damage through our critical strikes. Okay, so these are the aspects that we're going for here. So all these aspects here are going to be coming from gambles, just random drops that you can salvage and imprint. So aspect of Wild Claws is going to be really nice because, right, we're running Jaguar spells, we're running that Jaguar Spirit, and we want more attacks to proc that Jaguar Spirit. So this is going to be really good for us. It's also going to kind of beef up the base damage of your Rake. This can be actually farmed in this dungeon here. So you can target farm that and pick it up very quickly. Everything else here is, again, going to be dropped randomly. You can gamble for these with obols as well. Highly recommend opening a gamble calculator to ensure that you're gambling for the most efficient item. So first one here is going to be Aspect of Plane's Power. So this is going to be really nice because it's going to keep our ferocity at maximum stacks. If you're not sure what ferocity does, it basically increases your attack speed per stack up to 4 stacks, so 20% total at max ferocity stacks. So this is something that we want to keep up as much as we possibly can. And then we also get this nice damage modifier from it as well. So pretty nice. Overall, really strong aspect. We also have Vehement Brawler's aspect. So casting an ultimate skill increases your damage up to 8 seconds. And then you also gain 2 additional ultimate skill ranks. So this synergizes really well with all those points that we're funneling into our ultimate. Duelist aspect is actually going to increase our ferocity by 1. Depending on the roll, it could also go up to 5 as well. So if you get a really good roll on this, you can actually get up to 9 stacks of ferocity, which is really OP. Tons of attack speed you'll get out of this. We're also running Accelerating Aspect. You can kind of see a common theme here. We're going for a lot of attack speed. So critical strikes with your core skills increase your attack speed by 10 to 30% for 5 seconds. Then finally, Conceited Aspect here. You deal increased damage while you have a barrier active. So taking a look at some of these uniques, we have Loyalty's Mantle here. And this is really going to be good with our Jaguar Spirit Hall. So again, we're running Jaguar in both our primary and secondary Spirit Hall. Just got to read through this, right? So while your Spirit Hall choices match, their bonuses are 100% more potent. So double Jaguar, so we get this bonus effect. So this also gives a ton of vigor cost reduction and also a ton of CDR reduction on our spells as well. So long story short, lots of CDR. We can cast our spells more efficiently, and then doubling the effectiveness of our Spirit Hall combo. The other pretty obvious one is going to be Razor Plate. Again, more thorns damage is more poison damage. This is where the vast majority of your damage is actually going to be coming from, and it is a requirement for this build. We also have the new unique Balazan's Pants. So this can grant us Thorns, Max Life, Dexterity, Bastion, and really the effect is where most of the damage comes from. So this is super OP, and this is what is making all these Spiritborn builds so OP right now is these pants. So each attack damages close enemies for a percentage of your thorn damage and also deals 100% of its damage as poisoning over 3 seconds. Each time you've retaliated with thorns for 5 seconds, the poison damage is increased by 100% up to 300%. So the reason this build is so strong is because we have stacking effects from our key passives. We have stacking effects on Razor Plate. We have stacking effects from this. We have stacking effects from our ultimate. And all these modifiers stack onto each other, giving you a ton of thorns and poison damage. So if you do want to target farm any of these, you can target farm from these specific bosses. These, of course, do have a chance to drop in the open world. And then if you want to target farm these pants, you can target farm a Varshan. In terms of mythics to farm, you'll be going for Shroud of False Death, as well as our Ring of Starless Skies. This is going to be, Ring of Starless Skies is the mythic that you actually want to get first. This is going to help resource management be a little bit easier. And we're also going to get a large damage buff from this as well. And then if you need a little bit more defensive capability, you can run Shroud of False Death. But just know that if you do run Shroud of False Death, you are going to get a little bit more defensive capability from it, but you lose that Razor Plate that we talked about earlier, and it is a very significant damage loss. So, you know, just depending on how hard you're pushing pits, it might make more sense to run Razor Plate over this or this over Razor Plate. You know, just going to leave that up to you. In terms of our runes, this is what we're going to be running right here. So this rune is going to give us 15 offering, and it has a lucky hit chance up to 100% chance against non-healthy enemies. And then our invocation rune over here requires 400 offering with a cooldown of 1 second. So casting a skill other than a basic or defensive consumes all of your primary resource and increases the damage up to 100% for 1 second. So this is going to allow us to kind of cut down enemies, execute enemies once they get below that 80% threshold. So a very big damage buff between these two. We're also running these two defensive runes. So the offering that we get here is the Earthen Bulwark skill. That's going to give us a barrier that once again just kind of fits naturally into this build. It's going to fit in very well with our Earthen Bulwark, our Viscous Shield that we talked about earlier, as well as our Armored Hide. In terms of our Paragon Glyphs, this is what we're going to be running here. So naturally, we're going to be running Revenge, right, for that increased Thorns damage. We'll be running Colossal with all those extra Resolve stacks that we have that will funnel into increased damage. A flat damage increase through Ritual. And really the main two I'm going to talk about down here is going to be Bane and Hubris. So Bane, poisoning damage effects have 50% chance to double damage over their duration. It's a huge damage amp through Bane. And then Hubris down here at the bottom, you gain up to 3,000 thorns based on your dodge bonus. So we're actually getting that dodge bonus through this one point here in Mirage. So every time that we evade, we are getting increased dodge chance, which in turns gives us thorns. All right, guys, that's the end of this video. I'll leave a link in the description below for both these skills as well as the Paragon board if you guys want to check that out. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.